Swoga. Thank you, the board members who are here, my bosses, and thank you, the previous board who continue to be our bosses and continue to guide us. And thank you, my ex-co colleagues who are here. So mine will just be to take you through last year and the future. Because in coming here, what we do last year builds up the foundation for the future. So we'll just go through those as a few steps as we have. Well, yesterday, Victor was telling me you need to start up with a joke, but I was thinking about, I don't have one, except to tell you, it's not a joke, it's actually the truth. I'm from a little village called Nyem Nyem. Now, people have a hard time. They think it's non-existent. Actually, it is existent. You're going from Tororo to Mbale, halfway, 14 miles. Make a left. Ask for Nyem Nyem, they'll direct you there. And that's where I come. And you'll understand why I say it's very important. Because the oxygen we breathe there and the water we drank there made us to be able to come and share this with you here. So who we are. If you think about, we've kind of gone through these slides before. Vision, basically, to be a social security provider of choice. It's important we have the word choice there because in our minds, we wanted when somebody saves with NSSF and they go back to bed, they can say, thank God I saved with NSSF. And our purpose, which basically Mr. Martin talked about, we want to make lives better by making savings a way of life. And keep that in mind because later on we bring that back. And this basically the kind of the values that we built our platform on. The customer, you are members are in everything we do. Secondly, integrity is important to us. Trust, by the way, is our most important currency. I'll also share with you where that actually displays itself. And then we are going to be innovative. As Mr. Martin said, our society, we need that because we tend to be short-term the things that we do. So we're trying to become innovative so we can actually deliver more value to you. Of course, work as a team, from the top to the bottom, from the board to the ministers, to us, the staff working as a team. And that was actually shown a lot during this past year. And then we are trying to be efficient. We are lean. Now, when I say that, many guys are going to say, no, you guys are kidding, you're wasting money. But I'm going to prove to you that actually, no, we are not. So if you look at our strategy, we set up a vision in 2015. By then, our chairman was Mr. Patrick Kavirenge, who is sitting there. 2015, they pushed us to set up what our strategy would be in 2025, which is 2 years from now. At that time, by the way, we were a 5.5 trillion shilling fund. And they said, I think we wanted to be 10 or 11. They said, no, you can get to 20. And we say, no, sir, your board members, you're kind of crazy. These were the ones who do the work. But they insisted that, no, we need to stretch ourselves, that we'd have a 20 trillion shilling fund by 2025. You'll see where we are in a few minutes. We need to drive our customer satisfaction to 95%. At that point, we are around 69, I believe. We need to be able to pay benefits within 1 day, especially age benefits. At that time, we're paying them in about 36 days. And then we needed to have our staff engaged. For you to deliver that, you need your staff engaged at 95% by 2025. At that time, we're about 70%. There's a correlation between staff satisfaction and customer satisfaction. Research says if your staff are happy, they will deliver good value to your members or to your customers. And that's true because who do they meet? When people come to a worker's house, they don't come and see me. They go see somebody who is sitting on the ground floor. Now, when we deliver that, we said this was going to be our value proposition to our members. 3, safety. That is critical, that we keep your money in such a way that the day you become eligible, the money is there. Safety proposition. Not just the fiscal money, but also we've preserved your money against inflation. Midterm was an interesting exercise. Many people thought that we couldn't pay midterm. So a lot of people just came as the regulator said to test us. Would we be willing to pay? Would we have the capacity to pay? And we proved them right because in 3 months' time, we paid close to 30,000 members, over 460 billion shillings over a 3-month period. That's what we are. Those are the number of members who had served the year before over a 12-month period. So in 3 months' time, we showed actually we had the capabilities to pay that. Interestingly, midterm, the people who took their money and brought it back, I said, no, I was just testing you guys, see if it would work. So that was actually. The other one is convenience. It informs the way we serve our members. We want to serve you anytime, anywhere, any place, on any device, so you don't have to come, take a border, take a taxi, come to a branch. In the confines of your bedroom, we can provide you services. And then empowerment. This one we have to thank the government for. One of the saddest things you ever run into, and we come through that, is somebody has got 100 million shillings with NSSF. He comes and tells you that my wife is ill, my wife needs to go to India. And you tell them, we can't give you any money because the law never made a provision for that. We cry with them, they cry together. Now, finally, the amendment allowed us to do something that now members can plan for these short-term things that come across. You can save extra so that you can take care of those emergencies. That's what empowerment was all about. And as we're going to talk about, we're going to be rolling that much because we want our members to be empowered. The model is simple. We collect 5% from you, 10% from your employer. By the way, for some of you who are in financial world, there's no better investment than that. The day you put your 1 shilling with us, the employer is forced to put 2. In financial terms, that very day you go to 100%. But I don't know where you will get that anywhere. Then we invest it. We've just put your money in 3 classes of assets. Real estate, 9%. Most people don't realize that Pension Towers, Workers' House, Luboa, and you name every real estate we have, they only form 9% of the portfolio, but they give us the most noise because people smoke. We'll see that in terms of what they do. Equity is 13%, fixed income, 78%. What that basically means, 78% means that if NSF closed today, we would pay 78% of our members within 3 months. It may take us another 1 year to sell all the land ourselves, but we would pay for everybody in terms of what we see. We invest that money, we get revenue, we use part of it for overhead. Last year it was 1.02% of our assets. We give the rest to the members as benefits, and you come and claim in those ways. That's our business model. Simple model as it is. And we continuously go that through the cycle so you can actually see that. If you look at the fund today, we have 2.2 million members who are registered with us. 1.6 million have a balance. About 700 are active with us. 88,000 employers registered. Only 45 or 46,000 are active. We have about 22,000 voluntary members because we haven't rolled that up. You can come to us through the branches or through our network. Last year, the percentage of members who came and got services through our branch network were only 8%. 6%. 94% contacted and got services through our digital channels. And we have a staff complement of 579 staff. That number, I'm going to tell you something. Our neighbors, Kenya, right now, if you look at it in dollar terms, we are around $5.8 billion fund. We have 579 staff serving all of you. Our neighbors in Kenya, around $4 billion fund. They've got 1,300 staff serving them. And that tells a little bit about the efficiencies with the fund. We're almost 60% more bigger than NSSF Kenya. But we've got a staff complement of only 50% of what they have. So that, it tells you the level of service that we have that has come through there. We go a little bit into last year, and I think the CEO of Ubra mentioned it. The global economy still remained a problem. Lingering shocks from the pandemic, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, global tightening of monetary policy. What happened then, as he mentioned, a lot of developing economies, Uganda Stock Exchange, Nairobi Stock Exchange, Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, there was capital flight from those because the tightening of rates inside the US raised interest rates in the US. So most people then left, say, let's take my money where there is a higher rate. And what happened is, a place where we invest our money, as Martin's talked about, like in Nairobi, declined by 14%. Uganda declined. Rwanda declined. Dar es Salaam declined because of that. So there was a global depression. Whereas they thought that the growth rate would be 3.1% like last year, the growth rate actually projected for this is only 2.1%. That had a lot of impact, especially for us in Kenya. What you find that in Kenya's situation became worse, especially because you had tighter financial conditions. They had a big drought. They had the global hypes, government spending cuts. It basically impacted the Kenya economy, and we saw it in the Kenya shilling. Now you can just see that graph over the 18 months. What happened to the Kenya shillings? It kept on depreciating against the US dollar, but was depreciating much faster than the Uganda shilling, which meant the Uganda shilling was appreciating much faster against the Kenya shilling. Now, my director here, the deputy PSST, that's a very good thing for us, because now that means if I have 10 shillings, I can buy more of Kenyan goods than before. And it's a good thing for us. Where it hits us though, when we do our evaluations, because PwC tells us here the accounting standards require that, it doesn't matter whether you still have that cow you never sold it, but each year when you're doing a report, make sure that you translate that cow back in the Uganda shilling. So the best example to tell you is, suppose I bought a cow in Kenya 2 years ago. The cow was 10,000 Kenya shillings. The exchange rate between the Uganda shilling and the Kenya shilling was 30 Uganda shillings to 1 Kenya shilling, which means for me to buy that 10,000 shilling cow, Uganda shilling, now you don't need 30 shillings, you need 25 shillings to buy the same cow. In accounting terms, what we do is we then have to record our cow at 25,000 shillings, not 30,000 shillings. I still have the cow, but the accountants have said, you need to revalue that cow based on what you have. So that basically is what has come, what basically the CEO was talking about. Here you can see very naturally, in June 2022, our inflation rate was about 6.8%. Our CBR, which the government uses to manage inflation, was 8.5. When that hit the place, Bank of Uganda said, oh, no, we need fast. So what they did, they raised the CBR rate to 10%. And it worked. Because guess what? The inflation rate then fell to 4.9%. As it fell, and you heard what the CEO was talking about, our bonds, the long-term bonds that are being issued, began to also fall. We still have the old bonds that were good, but as the rates fell, the new monies we're investing it at lower and lower rates. And that had an impact also on the interest income that we had. Finally, the big thing that many of you know about, from December to May, basically even up to now, the fund was under serious scrutiny by the People's House, Parliament, IGG, and even the Office of Data General. And they're looking at things from left to right. And one of the things that I think we can actually thank God for this fund is this, that despite the internal disruption, the fund actually remains strong and resilient. It is a testament to us, as all of us as members of the fund. So I'm going to give you some bit. How did we perform against that background? Against that, how did we perform as a fund? Let me just start with our people. We call it our people agenda. We want NSSF we want to make it delightful to work at NSSF. So we have a target. Remember I told you by 2025, our staff engagement should be 95%. How do we perform? Look at that graph. We're at 92. We almost get 95 last year. But because of the disruptions we had, our staff satisfaction dropped to 86%. In the world of management, the global standard is 75%. If you get over 75%, you're happy. But with us, we had an ambitious goal, 95%. It declined from 92% to 86%. 6% fell. That's because the people who felt the most of the disruption were our people. Imagine investigators stepping in, coming in all the time, asking questions and so on. That had an impact on us. And if we felt that pain from the top management to everyone, we felt that pain. And that shows in terms of the satisfaction with the jobs that we're having. By the way, we began working now to take that back up. Then we had what we call efficient processes. How do we perform? Remember, our target is to pay benefits within 1 day by 2025, especially age benefit. Now, some of you may say, actually, the first time we say that, the board says we must be crazy. You cannot pay benefits within 1 day. And we say, no, we can't. And they say, nobody is doing it in this environment. I say, yes, nobody is doing it in this environment as a pension fund. However, let me give you what we benchmarked against. Many of you, if you go in the bank and you deposit your money in the morning, you deposit cash in the morning, how long does it take you to get that money if you go to the ATM machine? Maybe 5 minutes. You can come from there, go to the ATM machine and get your money. Folks, we've had your money for 30 years. We know where you live, where you work, your phone number, even when you're going to turn 55. By the way, I can begin processing your payments 1 month before you turn 55. And that morning, I give you a call. You want it now or tomorrow? So we can deliver it in 1 day, especially on you. So we had done quite well. You can see the blue line shows you our turnaround time. We grew up from, it was 9 before, then of course now when you see the jump, that was basically driven by midterm. We paid 28,000 members before in 2021. By 2022, we paid 46,000. The jump, that also increased the turnaround time. In last year, we reduced the number of days to 11.9. We still paid 46,000 members. And we paid last year 1.2 trillion shillings. 1.2 trillion shillings to 46,000 members. An average of 12, and I use the word average. Some of the age benefits, we actually paid them in 3 days. What has kind of dragged that number up are survivor benefits. At the beginning of the year, we thought that we could actually reduce that number by relying on NIRA. As you know, NIRA is supposed to be the custodian of our biodata. It should have a record of all our births, all our deaths. So we thought that we could go to NIRA, and NIRA could say, if they say Patrick is dead, he's really dead. I can rely on that. We did a test on 10 files, survivor benefits, 4 were still alive. People reported their spouses dead, but they're still alive. The sad thing is people don't know the implication of reporting somebody dead through NIRA. That means even your national ID technically is dead. You can't open up a bank account with a dead. So there is this implication that we need to educate our people about. So we've now resorted back until that is sorted out. If somebody comes and says, I want to claim a benefit because a member died, now we go to the home, talk to the LC1, look at the grave, talk to the relatives and so on. And that's what's pushing that number up. And I think the sooner we clean that out, the better it will be for us. Of course, we want to our customers now. This is the number that shocks. It actually shocked us when we got it. Last year, 2022, 82% customer satisfaction. Remember our target is 95%. In spite of the disruptions, our member satisfaction increased to 86%. Something that is so counterintuitive because you do think, no, there is no way you could do that. Now, remember there's a correlation between staff and customer. Staff is 86%, and that is also reflected in our customer satisfaction, 86%. One of the things we used to argue about, some people say, no, Patrick, 86%, no, that number is too high. It's too high. I met somebody came and talked to me, you guys delayed in paying them, you guys did this and that. So people come to you when they have problems. And that's part of the 14%. The other 86% are okay in that case. So that number we're going to work on. We now come then to the growing the fund, which is the financial. And this way, we actually now come to the actual performance that we have. These contributions. Now you think about this. Last year we collected, you members entrusted us with 1.5 trillion shillings. This year that number went up by 200 billion shillings, 1.7 trillion shillings. When you look at the graph year on year, and this is where you find there's a correlation between that customer satisfaction and actually what happened. We had a budget each month of collecting 132 billion shillings. If you look at the months of July 2022 to December 2022, we were collecting around 120 billion, 123, 120 billion. By December 2022, we were behind budget by 51 billion shillings. In January, we collected 148 billion shillings. From that point on, there is intensive scrutiny, there's intensive investigation, there's intensive noise around the fund. But for some reason, the members continue to trust us with their money. January, 148 billion. And it went on one up each month after that. By June, we collected 192 billion shillings in June, the highest we have ever collected in any month. Now, that tells you something, that the brand, the trust, which you say is the currency, our members never lost trust in us. In fact, what we found out, the people who made the most noise about the fund were never even members, never even stayed with the fund. Now, things we learned. It was one of the most, and this is why I tell my colleagues, guys, let's never blow this up. Let's make sure we maintain that trust because they trust us with their money. Look at the benefits. Up to 2021, before midterm, we paid 642 billion. 2022, we paid about 1.2 billion. Also 2020, 1.2 billion. Trillion, 1.2 trillion, thank you very much. So the amounts we are paying has consistently increased. This slide tells you something. The proportional benefits paid to contribution has been increasing, pointing to a maturing fund. And that then points us to then do a new thing. Look at in 2016, 2017, we're only paying about the proportion of benefits we're paying vis-a-vis the contribution was 30%. Look at what happened in 2022. That number is now 70%, which means when you look at in pension funds, we don't do it, but technically you're saying that the way you grow when your contributions are more than your benefits. And then when your income is more than your expenses. As the benefits begin to creep up, if you don't do something, your fund matures, and there's a point at which you can begin to die. And that's why we have to figure out a new way of doing things to get where we want to do. This graph, those who are looking at efficiency, I want to tell you something. There is the red line. The red line is our cost, year in, year out. Total cost, everything, depreciation, non-cash, whatever, is all in that red line. By the last year, interestingly, now we spent 190 billion shillings from 203 billion shillings. We actually spent less money than the previous year. Look at the blue line. The blue line is our realized income, the actual income we made. It went up from 1.9 trillion to 2.2 trillion shillings. Now you may say, hey, now you guys made all that money. What did you do? Did you eat that money? Look at the green line. It all went to the member. We took a little bit, spent it on our expenses, but then the rest of it, we've given to our members. This is the value we create to our members, and we create value for the members through these ways. We collect on your behalf 1.7 trillion shillings. The interest we give on your account, 1.58 trillion shillings. So last year we collected 3.3 trillion shillings. That is the value we created for the member, and we spent 190 billion shillings. Let me just put it to you in a very simple language. Think of you woke up in January 1, all members say, we're going to give you 190 billion shillings, go make money for us. At the end of the year, we made 3.3 trillion shillings for you. That we brought, collect on your behalf, invest on your behalf. That number is 17.4 times the cost you spent. For each shilling you invested in us on the cost side, we generated 7.4 shillings for the member. Let me do a comparison. I like our neighbor in the neighborhood. That number is 8 times. Tanzania is worse, 5 times. And the Uganda NSSF staff member generates 17 times for each shilling that is invested in them. No, sir, we're not wasting money. The mistake we make is we normally start with the cost. You've spent 190 billion, and we stop there. We don't go and ask the question, what did it generate in value? Because if you do, you'll find that this fund is one of the most efficient in the globe. Based on our size, about a $6 billion size, the average measure for efficiency, based on thing, for this, we should be spending 2.1% of our assets on expenses. In other words, instead of spending 1.09, we should be spending close to 300 billion shillings. We only spent 1.02%, and we're driving that number to below 1%. Now, the only thing that happened here, our total income, remember I showed you evaluation, I showed you the realized income. Our total income was impacted by what we talked about the Kenya when we're doing the valuation, about 1.04 trillion shillings in term caused by the depreciation of the Kenya shilling. We think that's a temporary matter that will come through as we do that. But otherwise, the fund performed very well. We made a promise to our members that we'll preserve your value by making sure that we at least give you 10-year average inflation plus 2 percentage points. If you look at the past years, we've kept that promise. This year, we hope we keep that promise. The reason why there's that question mark is only the minister who can announce that. So we're all waiting eagerly to know what he's going to announce. Hopefully, we actually do beat that price. If you look at, if the average price is 5%, That means our promise is 7%. So if anything was 7%, we more than beaten our promise to you. Finally, so all that then cultivates into the number. The fund grew by 8% from 17.3 to 18.6 trillion shillings. Remember the target the board gave us was 20 trillion shillings by the year 2025. The fund grew by 1.4 trillion shillings between 17.3 from last year to this year. We only need 1.4 trillion shillings to get to 20 trillion, which means most likely, and I use the word most likely, we'll hit 20 trillion by 2024. So, sir, thank you for pushing us. Some of the agendas we're doing, this is what we call the entrepreneur scale. We are scaling this. It's important to understand some of these things, and it's going to come back to what we talked about with that. We have a high innovator initiative together with MasterCard Foundation. What we figured out was, as the fund begins to mature, we better begin to create our own members. We can't wait for the economy to create members. It is not creating members. So we have this program where we're trying to create jobs. So far, we've funded 266 businesses. We've trained over 17, almost 7,000 entrepreneurs, created and sustained 88,000 jobs. Out of those, we actually have registered 1,800, and they brought in 200 million shillings in contributions. And this is the starting of the program. We are creating our own members. We're not waiting for the economy to do that. And we're going to tell you some other things that we have. We have what we call the Artisan Initiative. We onboarded about 6 or 7 on a platform. Now, if you want a carpenter, you want a mechanic, you want a plumber, go to Uncle Bob, and you'll get one of them there. They come and serve you. If you don't like, give them a thumbs down. Nobody else will get them. But we're trying to do that so that we can be part of this economy. There are some of the things we did. Kampala one was good. Raised almost 1 billion shillings to renovate 20 schools. The Career Expos, we reached about 5,000 students in 7 universities. And of course, our financial literacy program that you talked about. Interestingly enough, we had a reach of 2.3 million Ugandans online on financial literacy. It's one of the best programs that we have that's helping us reach there. So as we come to that, now I take you a little bit to the future. Remember our purpose is to make lives better by making savings a way of life. And the question is, we should not make lives better for only 10% of Uganda's labor force, because that's only what we have in this country. That's what's saving with NSSF today. We cannot and say we're making lives better. The fund is maturing, as we said. So we must look for new opportunities for growth. That led us to what now you've seen plus around here, what we call a Vision 2035. Has 3 pillars that underpin it. We want to move our coverage from 10% to 50% of Uganda's working population. 50%. We want to grow from whatever we are now, 18.6 trillion, to 50 trillion shillings by 2035. We want to do all that while there is an engagement, satisfaction rate between all our stakeholders, our customers, our staff, and at 95%. I'm going to tell you something, it's audacious. You want to grow from 18.6 trillion to 50 trillion shillings in 12 years. It took us 43 years from 1985 to grow to 18.6 trillion shillings. How dare you think you can do it? Yes, we can, and yes, we will. But the numbers don't lie. Most likely we can really exceed this number. Somebody told me the other day, said, Patrick, that's so bad. They give you a 5-year contract, but then you are giving a 10-year commitment. Aren't you trying to trap somebody else to come? The answer is yes, I am. But the truth is, we'll get there. We can actually get there by the things that we do. And how will we get there? The 2 platforms that will take us there is what create a willingness to save among Ugandans. Exactly what the CEO of WUBRA said. We repurpose and redesign the financial literacy program, animate it, local language, whatever it is, so we can bring that to bear. The key is stakeholder management. The Minister of Gender opened our eyes something we didn't even know was in this country. So far, since July, we've had 3 major engagements. Minister of Works, just dealing with the road sector. And there are so many people in the road sector that we've never even seen before. And now they're saying, Each subcontractor on the road sector will not get a license renewed unless they have an NSSF clearing certificate. We had an engagement with last week with the ICT section, ICT ministry, and there's so many players within there who had never same commitment. And we're going to have one with also we did with the energy sector. All the oil petroleum guys, the room was full of subcontractors, and they made a commitment they will not license any subcontractor without an NSSF clearance certificate. And those are the members that how we increase. And by leveraging on what's already available in the ecosystem, we will. Of course, awareness and compliance campaigns will follow that. And then we'll revisit alternative investments. We're looking at PPPs, public-private partnerships, for housing, impactful projects that will unleash. We're even going to the communities because there are people in the communities, skilled, trained, have nothing to do. They just need a little help, and they'll begin saving with the fund. So we're going to be part and parcel of this country in terms of what we do. So after creating the willingness to save, we have to create the capacity to save. And really the goals are three: increase people's earnings, monetize the informal sector, make savings convenient. We'll create jobs. The High Innovator Program, we are going to scale it up. Most likely we'll scale from 500 startups, maybe 1,000 startups, and create enough jobs through that. This one I will love. Finally, we had a major discussion with Mr. Chailap, the Deputy PSST, and his team. And we all agreed, if you think about, if we're going to reach 50% of this population, you need to get out of the formal sector. We have to. We cannot be in the formal sector. We have to go in the informal sector. The biggest group in the informal sector is who? Agriculture. So whether you want it or not, you better touch those farmers for them to save with you. So when we look at the ecosystem, let's look at NADS, OWC, PDM. The assumption we've made under that is that the farmer is 100% of the problem. So the production side of this business, the supply side of agriculture is the problem. Fix supply, you'll create demand. But that's the fundamental flaw in economics. Supply doesn't drive demand. Demand drives supply. So we finally agree that we need to do something with the demand side of agriculture. So we are soon going to create a marketing company. It's going through approval now, a national marketing company, to bring order, to bring predictability, certainty in agriculture. So the farmer who grows that potatoes, if he signs with us, knows exactly who is going to buy those potatoes and at what price and what quality, what quantity. The day we bring that, we'll raise productivity in this country on agriculture 3 times. One of the saddest things that happens is there was a minister from Zimbabwe. He was here. We're trying to get him to buy maize from us. And he said, I cannot buy Uganda maize to bring to Zimbabwe because there will be a riot on the streets. People are going to ask me that. Why is that you brought Uganda maize that's more expensive in Zimbabwe than Mexican maize that's cheaper? So our maize in Zimbabwe is more expensive than the maize from Mexico, which is in the other continent. And the reason is simple. From an acre of maize, a Mexican farmer gets 2,400 kilograms. And there's a market. So he can invest in fertilizers, can invest in all the things that he needs to invest in because he has that. A Ugandan farmer who gets 800 kilograms of maize on an acre struggles to sell that 800 acres. You tell me if he's going to invest in fertilizers to increase productivity. So that, and we knew we ran a pilot. Each of those farmers who will be participating will be saving with the fund. That's how we get to our 50 trillion. So we'll create our own farmers, our own members, and then we'll become the catalog organizer for the informal groups, as we talked about before. The importance of saving, my last area, just a Vietnam story. Many of you have heard this. Why we must all save. This is an example from Vietnam. Look at Vietnam. Compare this country to this Uganda. It's an agrarian society, so are we. It was coming from devastating wars, so did we. Their major export is coffee, so is ours. They have revolutionary leadership, so do we. They're gifted in natural resources. Think Think about that. That's a history. You would almost take the word Vietnam, put Uganda, and the same story. What are the reforms they had? They liberalized the economy to market forces. So did we. We looked to attract FDI. So did we. They had policies on value addition and industrialization. So do we. And we have a deliberate policy for export-led growth. Same country. Two countries. But see where Vietnam is. That is their GDP in current prices. The year is 2023. Their GDP is $550 billion. Uganda's GDP is $55 billion. If you go back and look at that number, we are where Vietnam was around 2004. What happened? How did they grow that fast? This is the intervention they did. The state enterprise, the state was very involved in agriculture. They involved in coffee. They did not leave the private sector alone. I think the fallacy we make, we think the private sector is strong enough to do. No, we prove they're not. As private sector, we are selfish, we are small, we are chaotic, we don't do things right. You need the state to help us get that. But number two is where my focus is. The impact of domestic savings. And you'll see what that did to Vietnam. They're able to invest in infrastructure using their money, invest in the things that need to be done. Now, let me just show you that graph. Basically, the orange bar is GDP per capita of Vietnam. If you compare to where we are, right now we are right under $1,000 per capita. The blue line is the domestic saving rate compared to the GDP. If you look around 1989, the GDP per capita was right around almost between 5 to 10%. They are just under 1,000. Then they began to save. Look at where they are today. The GDP per capita is about 3,000. Look at their savings rate, 35%. In fact, if you look at all the Asian tigers, whether it is Taiwan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, China, they began the journey to becoming the Asian tigers when their domestic long-term savings hit 25% of GDP. Ours is 11%. No wonder when the World Bank says we're not giving you any new money, we all panic, except the president. We all get into, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Because we are depending on the donor community for it. When we can actually have our own savings. Because in that case, we don't show up on the table empty-handed. We can put something on the table and negotiate better terms for ourselves. And as an NSSF, when we say we want to raise savings to 50 trillion, it's not just for us. It's actually for this country. Because if we don't, we have to encourage savings if we are to accelerate the entry of Uganda into the club of Africa economic giants. And the reason is simple. Same with the NSSF. It's good for you as a member. It's good for your family. It's good for Uganda. Thank you very much.
Through you, the board. And if you're joining us for this 11th virtual annual members meeting, we want to welcome you. We want to appreciate the virtual audience that's joining us on Twitter, on X. Well, now we have to remember it's X. On X and on YouTube and all the platforms where you're watching us from, including television. We want to thank you for being with us. We have a live audience here, and much later this morning we will have a plenary session where we'll engage the senior executive team at NSSF on this performance that's been reported by the Managing Director. We want to once again appreciate the Managing Director's report on the financials, the performance, and the outlook. I want to now take the pleasure of inviting the Chairman of the NSSF Board, Mr. Peter Chimboa, to come and make his remarks. And after his remarks, he will also launch our ESG product. So we want to welcome you, sir. And also after launching the ESG, Chairman, you will invite our Minister of Gender.
I would like to welcome Mr. Patrick Kaberenge, who is the chair of the previous board, which set the foundation for this phenomenal growth and transformation. You are welcome, Patrick. And also the advisors of the board, Mr. Tete, we've got also Mr. Koboy and the engineer Semogerere. I would like right now at this point to invite my colleagues on the board because I am because they are. And of course they are because I am. So I would like members of the board to come here. I'm not supposed to talk without their mandate. So the members of the board will come up here and I will be introducing each one. In the meantime, I would like to thank the members of parliament present. I would also like to welcome our auditor and advisor and mentor, Mr. Uthman Mayanja, for coming and also for being present as we give testimony to the nation. I would like to also welcome and thank members of the fund who are present. Our job as members of the board has been and still is to ensure that the wings are able to fly. And what we have done are just about three things. Number one is to deliver the duty of care, making sure that what Mr. Patrick Ayota has just shared, which are the results, we also add the relationships. So it's both results and relationships. Number two is to deliver the duty of loyalty, to ensure that the members, we are committing to a journey which leads to a happy retirement for all servers in Uganda. And the last duty is the duty of obedience, especially to the standards and practices of good governance. On this note, I would like to introduce Mr. Patrick Ochailap, who is also the Deputy Secretary to Treasury, PST, who is our board member, Dr. Silva Mugisha, who happens also to be the Chief Executive of National Water and Sewage Corporation, Honorable Sam Lyomoki is actually, you can see him right on the side there. You want to wave to the members? Right, yes, Sam Lyomoki. We have also here in a kind of celebration mood. Patrick has mentioned, Patrick Ayota, that crisis shapes us, and we have climbed out of adversity much the same way like when champions get into crisis, they simply evolve, they adopt and move on. NSSF will continue to expect challenges and crises because that's who we are. We have to expect them. If you don't expect crisis and adversity, it's almost like a guy who is in the village market and expects a bull not to charge at him because he's a vegetarian. No. So we expect this. And what we have built is we have built systems to do this. We are shaping a strategy that's creating a new vision for the fund, as you've seen it, 2035, looking far and positioning the fund to achieve exactly that. We are shaping the results, but we are, as a board, we are shaping also the relationships. How? I would like members present here and those online to first of all give, maybe I would consider it very good applause, a thunderous one if you can, to the members of staff of NSSF, all of them. And I would like you to stand up and we really give you real clap. These are the heroes. All members of staff of NSSF, our talent management, mobilizing, engaging, and communicating with members of staff, and even among themselves, and also developing them every day, not to just be experts, technical experts, but to become leaders. To become leaders. Technical experts become leaders. So we thank you very much, Tan. And I must feel very proud, along with my colleagues present here, that I think NSSF hosts some of the most intellectually talented individuals in this country. And you can see from the results. So recovering from the tumultuous times, the very difficult times that we have gone through this year, we give this all to the staff of NSSF, the talent that has done this. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a common word which is called thick. And Patrick Ayota has said everything. But as a board, our job is to ask, analyze, and follow through. And we analyze and follow through in just 5 areas. Number one is the technology uptake at the fund. We all know that NSSF is not just your social security fund. NSSF is a technology company. So have no doubt about that. It's just a technology company. Why? Because technology enables connectivity and collaboration across. And we now be able to move from the 20% to the 50% using technology. Today we mark a proud moment as we unveil this inaugural ESG and Sustainability Report. This report is not merely a collection of facts or figures. It serves as a testament and demonstration of our profound commitment to ESG principles, deeply ingrained in the core of our operations. We commit and state clearly that our regulator, UBRA, will be in many ways assessing and examining our compliance, in addition to other sign-ons that we have with the internationally accepted and internationally recommended raters of ESG compliance of the fund. Our mission extends beyond financial prosperity. It encompasses a deep and responsibility. We are moving from a simple mere handshake, which is more around philanthropy, which is merely more about corporate social responsibility. We are going for an embrace. Members who are present here, especially those who are married or who have relatives you love, you know that there's a difference between a handshake and an embrace, which sometimes is accompanied by more intimacy. So NSSF wants to build that intimacy with the society. This is integral to our strategy. Support to the community and working with the community is part of our business model. It's not peripheral to our business model. So this report is a declaration that we are not just a social security services provider, but a force for positive change for our communities and protecting our planet. As we look ahead, we commit to driving shared value and sustainable growth while addressing the pressing challenges faced by our customers, employers, and communities. Together, I believe that our legacy as a board will always be marked by this moment, which is the official launch of the ESG report. This is what makes us do business with the human heart. This is what makes us worthwhile and talk about value beyond the numbers. So I would like to have the ESG report, which I'm supposed to be officially launching. Where is the ESG report?
Just click a button.
Aha. This is very good. I would like you to yes, members of the audience, the gentleman right here is Mr. Hassan Mudiba, who is a member of the board, and also Director Annette Birungi. You want to give them a clap? Yes, that's right. Very good, very good. On behalf of the board, in the presence of the regulator and our auditor, ladies and gentlemen, it is our singular honor and historic opportunity for us to officially launch the ESG report for God and our country. Yeah, we can. How do you do it? No. We are done. Yeah, but they didn't have it. So.
But wanted to sign.
I don't know whether we need to have a little interval before I officially invite the Minister for Labor, Gender and Social Development, and then we'll be able to move on. President of the conference proceedings, are we okay? Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our chairman, Mr. Peter Kimbo. And since this is being broadcast live, we will take a technical break, which is really to run some of our products for you who are here in the audience and those of you who are online. So let's turn to the screen.
It's a new day at the Fend. A new chapter is unfolding. With renewed ambition, unwavering passion, and an unyielding sense of purpose, we are driven by a newborn spirit to serve not just you, but everyone and anyone who seeks a better life. Together, we're forging a realm of new possibilities. Vision 2035 is clear.
Join us for the 11th NSSF Annual Members Meeting happening on the 26th of September 2023, starting at 9 a.m. live on TV and online. Visit www.nssfug.org/AMM 2023 to register your attendance. NSSF, a better life.
As the sun rises across Uganda, a new dawn in luxury living awakens. Solana Lifestyle and Residences is Uganda's newest, most prestigious and award-winning lifestyle destination, an address for those who dream differently. At Solana, you're close enough to the hustle of the city, but far enough to come home to a sanctuary of smart living. Join a community of like-minded individuals where everything is taken care of and safety and security comes standard, where each community has a clubhouse, play area, pool, and other incredible features. Let an oasis of calm greet you at the end of each day with manicured gardens, pathways, parks, bicycle tracks, and so much more. Whether you're upscaling or settling down, buying a first home or investing,
Solana has it all.
Everyone wakes up to a day of hard work. To get hold of that new opportunity in order to live a better life. And everyone deserves a chance to change their circumstances and rewrite their story. Be inspired by the future, imagine it and live it. To shape the future and be able to withstand life's surprises. To ensure that tomorrow will be a better day.
Now you can.
Now you can.
Now you can.
Now you can. Now you can.
Secure their future. The NSSF Amendment Act now requires all formally registered employers to make monthly NSSF contributions for their staff regardless of the number of staff they employ. NSSF, a better life.
as the sun rises across Uganda, a new dawn in luxury living awakens. Solana Lifestyle and Residences is Uganda's newest, most prestigious and award-winning lifestyle destination, an address for those who dream differently. At Solana, you're close enough to the hustle of the city, but far enough to come home to a sanctuary of smart living. Join a community of like-minded individuals where everything is taken care of and safety and security comes standard, where each community has a clubhouse, play area, pool, and other incredible features. Let an oasis of calm greet you at the end of each day with manicured gardens, pathways, parks, bicycle tracks, and so much more. Whether you're upscaling or settling down, buying a first home or investing,
Solana has it all.
It's a new day at the Fend. A new chapter is unfolding. With renewed ambition, unwavering passion, and an unyielding sense of purpose, we are driven by a newborn spirit to serve not just you, but everyone and anyone who seeks a better life. Together, we're forging a realm of new possibilities. Vision 2035 is clear.
Join us for the 11th NSSF Annual Members Meeting happening on the 26th of September 2023, starting at 9 a.m. live on TV and online. Visit www.nssfug.org/AMM 2023 to register your attendance. NSSF.
As the sun rises across Uganda, a new dawn in luxury living awakens. Solana Lifestyle and Residences is Uganda's newest, most prestigious and award-winning lifestyle destination, an address address for those who dream differently. At Solana, you're close enough to the hustle of the city, but far enough to come home to a sanctuary of smart living. Join a community of like-minded individuals where everything is taken care of and safety and security come standard, where each community has a clubhouse, play area, pool, and other incredible features. Let an oasis of calm greet you at the end of each day with manicured gardens, pathways, parks, bicycle tracks, and so much more. Whether you're upscaling or settling down, buying a first home or investing,
Solana has it all.
Everyone wakes up to a day of hard work. To get hold of that new opportunity in order to live a better life. And everyone deserves a chance to change their circumstances and rewrite their story. Be inspired by the future, imagine it and live it. To shape the future and be able to withstand life's surprises. To ensure that tomorrow will be a better day.
Now you can.
Now you can. Now you can.
Now you can. Now you can.
Secure their future. The NSSF Amendment Act now requires all formally registered employers to make monthly NSSF contributions for their staff regardless of the number of staff they employ. NSSF, a better life.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the 11th NSSF Annual Members Meeting. We are coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Hotel. And very shortly, the moment we've all been waiting for will be happening here with the Finance Minister officially unveiling our interest rate for this financial year ending financial year 22-23. A lot of excitement building up online. Rate for this financial year ending financial year 22-23. A lot of excitement building up online. A lot of the questions you are asking revolve around the expectations based on the performance as shared with us by the Managing Director. And a lot of the conversations on X that a lot of people have shared are very optimistic, and all the members are looking at the numbers. And I'm sure those of you who have your money at NSSF will be waiting for that much anticipated SMS later today. So if you haven't charged your Kabiriti, this is the only best time to do that. If you have one of those smartphones that drains the battery very quickly, I suggest you carry a power bank today. That SMS will be coming. A couple of messages. We are using the hashtag AMM2023, and I did see a tweet here where we are looking at the promise to grow the fund from 10% coverage to 50% coverage by 2035. That kind of sums up the mood online, and you can tell that the conversations online are in anticipation for what should be an exciting early part of today or early afternoon when that announcement is made by the Honorable Minister. I want, of course, in a very special way to recognize our Minister of Gender, who is here with us and will be speaking to us very shortly, but also all the board members of NSSF and the key stakeholders that are here in the room. All right, so very shortly, I will be inviting the chair, who will then invite the minister, but we are having a receiving party shortly for the finance minister, who will be joining us shortly. We want to appreciate our virtual audience and, of course, the Auditor General who joined us virtually, and all the members who are able to watch live and share today's conversation across all platforms. You can use our hashtag AWM or AMM 2023, but also you can share the link with a friend and ensure that all the members are ready to watch as we unveil this interest rate later this morning. I want also in a very special way to, again, appreciate the team at NSSF for the great performance that was shared with us by the Managing Director, and we appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, very shortly, I will be transitioning to that announcement, and we will be transitioning into the final phases of today's conversation. Immediately after the announcement on the interest rate, of course, we will have our Q&A session with the senior management team at the fund, who will be taking us through the questions that you are sharing with us online and all the platforms that are available to you. And these questions have already been shared, and we want to appreciate all of you that have been sending your questions in, and we are currently putting together these questions for the team at NSSF to give you feedback. The Honourable Minister, I'm told, has arrived, and we will quickly move into this next phase of the program. I want to appreciate all our digital platforms that are sharing this conversation with all our members who are on the X platform and all the other socials that are available to us, including our very own GCIC that is here in the room. I want to take the pleasure of recognizing the arrival of our Finance Minister and Honorable Minister, you're welcome, and we want to thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. We will, as soon as the Minister has settled in, invite the Chair, who will then invite the Honorable Minister of Gender to address us, but that's after our Finance Minister has settled in. It's that moment, just as we always anticipate during the budget reading, where the Honourable Minister carries a briefcase. This is the big moment, when the Minister carries the interest rate with him. I have tried, honestly, I have tried to ask as many friends as I have in NSSF to share with me the number, and they have refused. Because they say the Honourable Minister is the only one who knows the interest rate. I am anticipating and looking forward to that moment when the Honourable Minister unveils the interest rate. Honourable Minister, you're welcome. I think we will next time carry a briefcase written on interest rate as you walk in. That will be the moment we all look forward to. May I now once again take the pleasure of inviting the Chairman of the Board to come and invite our Minister for Gender to address us. You're welcome, Chairman.
Ladies and gentlemen, members present here physically and online, allow me to invite you also to join me in welcoming our Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija. You are welcome. And once again, also the Minister for Labor, Gender and Social Services, Honorable Betty Among, who joined. Welcome. There was, and I'm to blame for this omission, and I beg your pardon, to have failed and forgot or skipped the introduction of someone who is part of the leadership team of NSSF and who is also a very important catalyst and engine for transformation. Mr. Gerard Kasato, can you come over here? Mr. Gerard Kasato, who is on my right, is the acting Deputy Managing Director of the fund. And he is not going to say anything, but is part of the promise that the Managing Director, Patrick Ayota, made this morning to all of you. So thank you very much, Gerard. On this note, I would like to invite our supervisor, the Minister for Labor, Gender and Social Development, Honorable Betty Among, to come here and lead us on the journey to the final announcement, which our colleague is going to make later this morning. Honorable Betty Among.
The Honorable Members of the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Honorable Members of Parliament who are here, the Chair and the board members, the MD and the staff, the UBRA and all of you in your various capacity. I stand here this morning before members who are here and virtually to report to you that I'm glad by the presentation from the Managing Director indicating that the last 1 year, the fund has made progress than many other previous years in respect to increase in collection from contributions. I am very glad because that is how I am judged as a minister in charge of labor, because the funds are collected from workers. This has already indicated, despite the difficult issues which confronted us in the transition from the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Gender, I am humbled by the support and trust, the confidence the public, the members of Parliament and stakeholders placed on all of us during this turbulent period. To me, leadership demands that we must not run away from tackling even the most difficult challenge, so long as we stay focused on the bigger picture. Leadership is indeed tested during the most hardest of times, not during the most peaceful of time. I therefore want to applaud the management team who kept the ship sailing in the waves, achieving highly during this tough time. They did not relent despite all the negativity. Instead, they seized the opportunity, remained committed to the vision, and today we see the positive outlook from the presentation of the Managing Director. I congratulate you. Members, 38 years ago, Uganda joined the global community under International Labour Organization and enacted the National Social Security Act 1985, which established the National Social Security Fund to provide for its membership, the payment of contributions to, and the payments of benefits out of the fund and for other purposes connected therein. Social security schemes is a global strategy by the United Nations to support workers to save for long term, to address vulnerability of workers during old age when they retire. It was adopted as a strategy to support the workers from plunging into poverty at retirement. The role of Social Security is therefore critical, particularly today at a time when centrality of social policies and values of social justice more broadly are coming under a lot of pressure. You know COVID, you know all the pressures pulls people back into poverty, and this puts more pressure on Social Security. Social Security is not a drag of economic development, but a powerful force driving it forward. By prioritizing Social Security, we are demonstrating that growth and development do not benefit from denying people a fair share of productivity gains our societies are generating, nor are economic transformation and innovation served by leaving the poor behind. Eliminating extreme poverty and putting a social protection in place is a major contribution for realization of a number of sustainable development goals, beginning with the first: end poverty in all its form everywhere. The nexus between social protection, quality job creation, and sustainable economic growth is perfectly laid in the ILO Social Protection Recommendation 2012, number 202, and Social Security is an important tool to prevent and reduce poverty, inequality, social exclusion, and social insecurity, to promote equal opportunity and support the transition from informal to formal employment. Social Security is an investment in people that empowers them to adjust to changes in the economy, in the labor market, and Social Security system act as automatic social and economic stabilizer, helps stimulate aggregate demand in times of crisis and beyond, and help support a transition to a more sustainable economy. If you look at what Uganda has done post-COVID, you realize that we have pushed much more on the social sector. That's why you see the PDM targeting 39% of the most poor. It's a form of social security to see how the majority of the poor can pull up by government policy. Government of Uganda believes that building robust social security system is about much more than only eliminating poverty, but also to facilitate economic growth through strategic investment of its fund in the economy. We want to congratulate NSSF for investing in sectors that have supported the growth of this economy, in bonds, in housing, which has enabled Honorable Kasaija to be able to fund most of the government programs. Equally, under human capital development, Social Security plays a crucial role in the protection of minimum income, health care, social insurance, and other elements of the welfare, which are all important for securing human capital and thus productivity gains, a perspective that is rather lopsidedly economic. it is important to note that our current Social Security Fund members at NSSF are composed of low-income earners as the majority savers. To go to the numbers, in the fund that you see at now 18 trillion, the numbers talks to the most vulnerable being the bedrock of this fund, because those whose savings are below 10 million constitute 83% of the total savers at the fund. This group earn on an average a monthly income of 250,000 per month. They are the ones that are the bedrock, constituting 83%. Those with savings ranging from 10 million to 50 million are 12%. Those with saving in the fund ranging between 50 to 100 million constitute 3%. And those above 100 million, maybe most of you here have 100 million and above. So you people who are in this room, you constitute 2% of the money in the fund. So you can judge yourself. Therefore, whatever decisions we make, we must be considerate to the needs of the majority of the members. If you are investing members' money on other social protection interventions as housing, you must balance between targeting high-end population with low-income earners as a measure for social protection in terms of affordable housing. In many countries, social security interventions is used to address inequality and redistribute wealth. Most low-income housing built funds have addressed low-income housing targeting their members. I have therefore advised the board and managers of NSSF to develop a strategy for affordable housing for NSSF members. In February 2023, HE, the president, signed a bipartisan bill into an act, introducing voluntary savings and reducing mandatory contributions from 5 employees to 1 employee. These amendments reaffirm the commitment of our government to the principle of providing universal access to social security. Since then, we have intensified mobilization and sensitization, targeting stakeholders to implement the new act to enable us expand coverage. During these engagements, I am emphasizing the need for employers to comply with issuing contracts to all employees, because it is in the contract that a provision for deduction of NSSF is embedded. I am emphasizing employers to ensure that they deduct and remit contributions of employees, and that when they do so, they must indicate the names, the account numbers, and other details of employers to avoid money of members coming and lying in the suspense account. I am emphasizing NSSF to ensure that they leverage other government MDAs, they leverage our labor officers to ensure there is outreaches in the informal sector as they introduce the voluntary saving. I will soon conclude the statutory instrument on voluntary saving, which allows all categories of people to save, those in the Juakali, the private sector, corporate entities, and recently, when we had engagement with the illegal migrants in the UK, they showed willingness and the need for them to save. And what were they telling us? They were telling us they go for Cheyo, they reach there, they're illegal, and they cannot save within the system of UK. And so, if they are able to be supported under voluntary saving, then they will be able to save that money under NSSF, and when they come back, they have their saving. So I hope that chairman was very instrumental in those meetings, that you will follow through with those groups that are very enthusiastic. I must emphasize that His Excellency the President has demonstrated his commitment to the country, that he would want expansion of Social Security through signing the new amendment. And as you are aware, Social Security forms a very big part of the NRM manifesto, and we must keep that promise. The work ahead, therefore, rests with the board and the management team. Today, I'm confident with the team, and with the presentation from the MD, there's a clear and dramatic demonstration that our system works when men and women of goodwill together come to work as a team. So I again want to congratulate you. From his presentation again, you realize that for you to come to the interest that the minister will declare today, there are many factors that will contribute that. The collection from contribution, how the money has been invested, profit from the interest, and losses. But I am again happy that from the analysis, the Ugandan side of investments and collection have stood firm and given high interest rate and high achievement, while the Kenyan part has been lowered due to the depreciation of the Kenyan shillings. The important part of this analysis is that when we increase collection and contribution from employers, then it will balance whatever losses we will have. So my emphasis as a minister in charge of labor is that collection of contribution from members remains the single most fundamental foundation for money that should be invested in NSSF. And so we must do everything to ensure that we collect money and contributions from the members. We must look at also the management team and their ability to grasp the strategic goal holistically. And I'm glad that with this presentation, the management has confirmed to us that they have a broader strategy that places the importance on collecting contribution and expanding coverage of social security. I therefore want to pledge to members today that the team here has demonstrated resilience, proved that they are strategic thinkers, effective, and willing to continue learning and engaging stakeholders. Together, we shall use the new law to expand and improve social security system to adhere to the principle of universal coverage and to significantly increase the participation rate of the people in the informal sector, in the corporate sector, private sector, migrants, to ensure that we scale up social security. Lastly, I think we all share the same belief that economic success is not an end on itself. Social security is a staircase to social justice. We are all making our modest contribution in building that staircase. I thank you for your individual and collective contributions, and now allow me to call and invite the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to come and declare their interest. Thank you very much.
The Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Is the Auditor General here? Represented? Okay. The representative of the Auditor General, Mr. Chairman of NSSF Board of Directors, members of NSSF Board, the Managing Director, NSSF, the Chief Executive Officer, UBRA, management of NSSF, workers' representatives, members of the fund, I repeat this, members of the fund. The media fraternity and all invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, It's my great pleasure once again, we were here last year, to join you for the 11th NSSF Annual Members Meeting. I would also like to congratulate the NSSF Board and the management for posting a remarkable performance on almost all the key performance indicators. Congratulations. Yes, when someone does something good, we cheer him or we cheer her. Cheer again. I am especially glad that the fund's assets registered a growth again from Uganda shillings 17.26 trillion in financial year 2021-22 to Uganda shillings 18.56 trillion in financial year 23-24. Many naysayers, as a new word, for us down there, there is a word we use. Those who don't appreciate when things have been done well. But I will use the word which somebody wrote here for me. Many naysayers did not imagine the possibility of growing this fund to Uganda shillings 20 trillion. That you will achieve that strategic objective a year ahead of schedule that we achieve that strategic objective a year ahead of schedule is definitely laudable. The second KPI I am interested in is the money you generated during the year, because that shows the productivity of the investments that I approved during the year. I am therefore glad that the total realized income earned increased by 15% from 1.9 trillion in the financial 2022 to shillings 2.2 trillion in the financial 22-23. This is very commendable given the turmoil in Europe due to the things has been taking place in Europe. Investor flight from most of the developing markets back to the USA, reduction in value across all East African stock markets, and the increased scrutiny that the fund underwent in the third quarter of the just concluded financial year. Now I want to do what has brought me here. That is declaration of interest rate for financial 22-23. In 2013, the fund made a commitment to pay savers a real annual return, that is, at least 2 percentage points above the 10-year rate of inflation. I am happy to note that the fund has consistently delivered on this commitment. In accordance with Section 35, Part 2 of the NSSF Act, as amended, I hereby I want to first see. Kiwede. Okay, in accordance with the section 35, part 2 of the NSSF Act as amended, I hereby declare the interest rate of 10%. As provided for the NSSF Act, I'm about to finish. As amended, this new rate will be calculated and credited to the balance outstanding on the member's account as of 1st July 2022. This new rate equals to shillings 1.591 trillion Uganda shillings in total. Last financial year, the 10-year average rate of inflation was 4.2%. The rate I have just declared is 5.8% above the 10-year average, which means that the fund has once again delivered on its promise and surpassed it by almost 3.8%. To the members, thank you for trusting the NSSF with your money. It is safe. No fooling, it is safe. Your money is very safe. The fund is an institution we are all proud of, and we shall not let you down. With these remarks and my doing my duty, I would like to thank you, all of you. And may God help you in whatever you're doing. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for the Honorable Minister of Finance for the big announcement, our 10% interest rate. Honorable Minister, we want to thank you. As I move the podium away, which the team is handling, Honorable Minister, just one or two asks. You will have a photo moment with the Minister for Gender and the board of NSSF, and they will do two things. One, we'll have the photo with our interest rate, the most important thing today, right? And then the next photo is with our brand new report, the ESG Sustainability report, which was launched today by the board, and we will want a photo moment with you and the board and that report on the screen. So, Evelyn and the team, if we could remove the podium first. Evie, can we remove the podium now? Because I only have 1 minute. The minister has granted me, all right? Honorable Minister, we want to thank you for your time. There was optimism on social media. There was some worry also, given what we've seen in the region. And I think the MD also did not help the situation by talking about Kenya too much in his presentation. He kept reminding us and kept sharing what was happening in Kenya, where some of our money is. And so people then started getting jittery. And you can tell sentiment, Honorable Minister. We've been watching on social media. Before you arrived, we only had about 2,000 people on the platform sitting. When the Minister of Gender was speaking, it was 3,600. Now you could see this excitement building. By the time you announced, we had 5,000 people, members waiting for this grand announcement. So, Honorable Ministers, if you could take to the front, Chairman of the Board and your team, please come. We will have two photos, one with the interest rate and the other with our ESG. Our regulator, UBRA, should be there. Please do join. Our acting deputy CEO, please come. Let's join the team as we officially unveil this 10% interest rate and the ESG and sustainability report. Those are the two photos that the minister and the board will be taking. And immediately after that, as the ministers depart, I will be inviting the executive team that will then be joining us for our plenary session, our online audience, our virtual audience. The questions you've shared with us have been looked at, and that is what we will be putting before the executive team at the fund, and those questions will be answered. Now that we know the interest rate, a lot of the questions were around the interest rate and what was informing the interest rate, which truly is the performance and the outlook of the fund, was one of the topmost number of questions we were being asked. What's the interest rate? And that has been unveiled by the Honorable Minister. And shortly we will then delve into the other questions our audiences have been asking and the online teams have been sharing. All right, so that's the first photo. We'll now have the ESG report. Thank you, team. If we can have their ESG report in the background. And that also will mark, yes, there you go, Honorable Ministers. That is our ESG report that was launched today by the
desires are, what your obligations are. If you have 100 million shillings with a fund, and you've been earning 1 million shillings, and you've lived on 1 million shillings, it may be worthwhile asking the question, what can I invest my 100 million shillings to continue earning 1 million shillings? Because then you know you will sustain your lifestyle. Now, we do have the financial literacy. We are open, you can speak with us. But it's enough to tell you can put it in this place, you can put it in this place, depending on what your financial objectives are. So we do have that.
All right. Still with you, MD. Louis Mulanga says, how far has the fund gone with changing the NSSF law on midterm from contributing for 10 years to saving for 10 years?
There's actually a draft proposal, I believe it is still with the ministry, that would be tabled in Parliament for that discussion. So it's still going through the legislative processes for that purpose.
All right. I'll come to the CS, Agnes. Agnes, Stephen Luquia says, what's the fund doing in order to recover money held up, for example, in UTL, in the UTL court case? Or when will the members get this money?
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yeah, so thanks for the question, Stephen. I'll give a bit of background to the case. In October 2022, the ruling came out, which in essence meant that the fund indeed can avail the savings to its members. However, there was a prior injunction that had been obtained by our members in the industrial court. And right now, what is in the way of our members accessing their money is that injunction. So the members have since applied to court to have the injunction vacated. And what we have done as a fund is to actually file our own submission, in essence confirming that we have no objection. Unfortunately, the determination of that application has been frustrated by a still pending issue between our members and their lawyers to do with the legal fees that their members needed to pay their lawyers. So our appeal is for our members and their lawyers to quickly resolve that issue so that the injunction can be vacated, and then we will be in a position to avail our members their money. So how soon? As soon as the injunction is vacated. Thank you.
Thank you, CS. Still with you. Natalie Bagaya says, what's the possibility of the NSSF Act being amended to enable the fund to lend money to members?
So to lend money? Oh, thanks again. Honestly, not in the short, medium term, because the fund is not a financial institution. And as you heard the UBRA CEO emphasize the aspect of long-term saving for retirement. So that remains the objective. However, the fund is enabled by the recent amendments, able now to come up with innovative products which can enable our members access the services that they would otherwise need the money for. So you had our minister challenge us about affordable housing, for example. There are issues around insurance and medical, discussions that had actually long started before the amendments. So we know our members' needs, and there is every effort to innovate products that will address those needs. And for example, recently when the UBRA regulations allowed access to members' savings, using their savings as collateral for mortgages, again, that's another area. We hope that if our law is amended, then our members can access mortgages. So we will not be able to lend directly, but we will come up with innovative products to meet our members' needs using their savings. Yeah.
All right, Natalie, you will have to wait a little longer. As you heard, the fund is not a financial institution. I'll quickly turn to our Chief Finance Officer, Stevens. Stevens, the very first question for you comes from Peter Okello, who says, how do you calculate, depending on which school you went to, how do you calculate the interest paid to members? This is a big question. How did we get to 10%?
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. How we calculate the interest to members is premised both in the law and what is available for distribution. First of all, the law states that interest will be based on the balance you have as of the first day of the beginning of the financial year, as you have the minister declare. So based on that, we have the balance against which you have going to get your interest. Then the rest depends on how well or badly the fund has performed. Because basically what we do, we get everything, all the earnings that we have had, and take off the little money we spent in expenses and redistribute the rest to the members. So that's how it is. So what is in the pot then determines the interest rate we are going to give you. You've heard the minister say we've declared that what was in the pot this year was 1.51 trillion shillings, which translated in around 10%. So in a nutshell, that's how it's done.
All right. So there is the risk, and I'm moving away from Okello's question. You know, as the MD was speaking, based on where your investment portfolios are, that a lot of people will peg the interest rate to the performance of the economy. Is that not right? Or, you know, if the economy performs well, but depending on where your money is, the return may not necessarily be according to the performance of the economy.
Yeah, they are linked in a way and also not linked, because the fund, first of all, is a long-term investor. So we have some investments which are locked in, which is a sizable proportion. So we are quite sure of how much we are going to earn from at least 70% of our investments over the next couple of years. But of course, we also live in current times. The other aspects that will affect, there are those investments that we are making in the short term, but also have costs that might be escalating. So those are taken into comparison.
All right. Alan Ogwaro, still for you, Stevens, asks, will NSSF, and this is an interesting question, will NSSF float shares so that members can become shareholders within the fund? That's a really good one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the answer is no, because NSSF is set up by an act of parliament as a public body. It's not a listed company, so it's not going to float shares, not unless the government feels the need to do so and changes the law.
All right. I'll come to the acting Deputy Managing Director. Katie asks, Katie asks, how is the fund addressing low return on investment for members to realize high interest on the contributions? Are you buying the right asset mix? So it's a two-in-one.
Thank you, Maurice. So we are trying to do whatever we can to minimize the volatility of the return, which basically makes the return robust over the long term. We are doing four things. First is on the asset mix. The asset mix has a target of 75% fixed income. It also has a target of 17.5% equities and a target of 5% real estate. That is a modest, that is a conservative asset mix, which is aimed to reduce the volatility in terms of the return. So one way we are doing to ensure that the return does not move adversely is through the asset mix. We also have diversification as one of the ways in which we try to minimize that. There's a tried and tested convention in investments that you do not put all your eggs in one basket. So we continue to diversify within the ranges of the asset classes to ensure that the return is sustainable over the long term. The third thing that we do is to basically ensure that we look for alternative ways and alternative asset classes that can help improve the return over the long term. Currently, we're looking at asset classes like infrastructure. We know there's a big need in terms of government infrastructure projects. So we are trying to work out ways in which we can partake in some of those opportunities. We are also looking at a couple of other alternative investments like commodities. And from time to time, we engage with our regulators, the CMA and the Uganda Regulatory Benefits Authority, to ensure that we look for avenues of growth in terms of where we put the money. Finally, we also put into mind tax planning, because the returns of the fund are taxed. Unfortunately, we are still a taxed pension fund. we still hope and pray for that day when the fund will be tax exempt. But for as long as we are still paying tax, we try to look for investments that are shielded in terms of the tax burden. So those are the 4 things that we are doing to ensure that the return to the members is sustainable for the long term. Thank you.
Jared Musoke Isma asks, is there any product the fund offers where I can invest my money from my personal earnings and earn a profit?
You just heard from the Minister of Gender speech that she's soon gazetting the statutory instrument for the voluntary product savings. A lot has been in the works since the law was amended last year. The draft regulations are ready, and when that instrument is gazetted, the fund should be able to look into other products to basically improve the product mix available to members.
All right, I'll come to Mr. Sajabi, who is the Chief Commercial Officer. And my quick question for you is from Nathan Wanjala, who says, I'm working in 2 different places. Should I register both of them for my monthly contributions?
Thank you. So for Nathan, first of all, you as a member, you meant to register only once. But if you're working in multiple companies, the same number that you got from NSSF is what you need to supply to your different employers. So your employers can indeed be able to send your contributions to the same number. So the answer is yes. You can submit your NSSF number to your multiple employers for the purpose of them contributing into the fund.
All right. Gabriel Ajoma says, I joined NSSF in 2010, but my provisional balance is still 3.4 million, yet every month my money has been deducted for the NSSF savings. What is NSSF doing to improve compliance by employers and make the whistleblowing platform more effective? This is still for you, Mr. Sajab.
Thank you, Gabriel. So first of all, your balance is a factor of how much you earn. So it's not simply because you're contributing every month. What are you earning every month as your salary? Because that's where your 5 and 10% come from. So if we don't have the specific details of Gabriel, we are unable to, to conclusively say that his balance is less than what it should be. But if it's a true case of an employer that is making deductions but is not contributing, we've got a platform that you can access on the website of the fund and whistleblow. Give us that information, attach any evidence like his payslip, and if we discover that deductions are being made and the employer is not submitting his money, we'll come in and ensure that that money is paid.
All right. I still have many questions for you, Mr. Sajabi, but I'll come back to you. I'll go to Barbara Rimi. Barbara, the particular question is from Yusuf Kambaza, who says, can NSSF sign an MOU with institutions of higher learning to allow the children of its members access to education, and if tuition is deducted from their savings?
Thank you, Yusuf, for that great question. However, the NSSF Act as amended in Section 19 provides clearly for the benefits that members can access. So yes, it's a good idea, but no, not within the mandatory space. However, we welcome such suggestions. We'll consider them if they are viable, and the voluntary contributions. Thank you.
Still with you, Barbara. The Samuel Itetio says, the current benefits for members look at only old age. What benefits is NSSF planning to introduce for early access? Not just midterm, but early access.
Okay. Samuel's question seems to focus mostly on the age-related benefits, of course, but I know there is one benefit that was introduced last year in January, that is midterm access. However, the minister and my colleagues have already stated that regulations are being developed which are going to be targeted at voluntary contributions. Because for every benefit that is introduced, the big question that we have to answer is how is it funded? And from the Minister of Gender Submission, you heard that most of the members actually are, first of all, contributing less than 150,000 a month, and also have balances less than 10 million. So that is really a very big key issue when you're looking at funding for additional benefits. because it means even when members retire, this money is not really enough to take them through retirement. So we are working on the voluntary regulations, and hopefully we shall be able to get members very attractive packages that then they can contribute a little more and get much more from the fund in terms of benefits. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Barbara. Managing Director, I come back to you, and this particular question, I'm glad I'm asking after the ministers have left. The question from Innocent Turiasingura, who says, government intervention in the operations of the fund need to be checked as it's greatly affecting its performance. What steps have you taken to remain independent?
The truth of the matter is we are formed by government, by an act of parliament. Government is a key stakeholder in the fund. And for some people who may have misgivings, let me just say something about the fund that maybe once in a while we appreciate the government. One, within the act, there is a clause. NSSF is the only fund today you have in this country where you cannot lose your money as a member by law. You have 100 million shillings at the beginning of the year. The worst that can happen to that money, it will go up to 102 million. It can never go down below 100 as a guarantee within the law. Number two, and that was said by government, it's only the government that has actually mandated your employer to put in 10% when you put in 5% by law. And these things are good for us as citizens. Yeah, once in a while there are hiccups, but on an overall basis, you need that partnership because as a member, if we ever mess up as management, there is a fallback position that the government will step in. You don't want to say you just be independent, do whatever you want to do. There is a balance that we have to go and appreciate what each of the parties is doing.
All right, still with UMD, the question from Henry Mutabazi, who says, do members have a say in making decisions on which projects their contributions should be invested in?
Do members have a say? You give us feedback through our members' meeting, you give us feedback through what you send to us, you give us feedback as you do that, and we consider it. The law, really, the way the law was structured, it's 100% under parts, 100% controlled by government. Fortunately for us, we've been able to get very smart people within the fund. When Gerard talks about the asset mix, that's a very scientific approach towards how your funds are invested. In fact, there was an experiment done. Somebody said he could do better than us, that he could do better than the fund. So he took his money out. In fact, in the midterm, the guy said, no, I can do better than you. I'm going. So I think they took out 400 million shillings to go invest on their own. 6 months later, the money is gone. His one regret is he could have left it up with us. Don't underestimate the scientific approach that this team brings. You may think you can do better on your own. Science and data doesn't support that at all.
Thank you, MD. I'll come to the CS. Mrs. Sharaza, let's take a question on compliance from Gloria Nabanda, who says, what is the fund doing to improve compliance? Many times we whistleblow, but no action is taken on the employer.
Thank you. So compliance is driven through a multi-pronged approach. Key and primarily of our focus right now is sensitization, awareness, and you've heard a lot spoken about this today, using multiple approaches, using our partners, other ministries, departments, and agencies. I won't repeat what the MD said. He talked about the sessions we've had. So increasing awareness, so there is a willingness to actually contribute and comply. That is very, very key for us. Then secondly, we use a combination of a relationship management approach and enforcement. And again, for those of you who have been attending our sensitization fora, you've heard us, especially the MD, talk about our categorization of our members, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good will be relationship managed to maintain their compliance. The BAD will be engaged, so those will be, having a few hitches here and there. So we'll get into the deeds of settlement to get them to get back in line. And then the BAD, the really difficult employers, will be handled through the litigation approach. So the law mandates us to institute civil and criminal action against our employers who are breaching the provisions of the law and their principal officers. So it's a multi-pronged approach. About the whistleblowing, my colleague Geoffrey spoke to it earlier. So we do have the platform. I believe it shows if a member is able to track the status of their complaint, and if there are concerns, we have other channels through which we can be reached, the branch network and the like. So that is how we handle compliance.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Let me turn to Stevens. Stevens, you have a question from Herbert Nduga. Herbert says, what investment and cost management structures has the NSSF put up to increase the annual interest rate for members?
Thank you very much, Herbert. At NSSF, we're a very cost-conscious organization. You have to prove value for money for each and every transaction you have to do. It doesn't matter whether you budgeted for it. You can't say we budgeted, say that Chief Commercial Officer said, I budgeted to buy a car for branch X. That was in June, but if he wants to buy it in September, he has to prove to us that actually branch X needs that car. So having said that, we also have to know that we actually spend far much less if you compare to other organizations. The CEO, Patrick, was telling you about the cost of administration, which is around 1.02%. But let me put it in the cost-income ratio, which is basically best understood by most of the people. Our cost-income ratio is about 9%. That means for every 100 shillings that we earn in income, only spend 9 shillings. If you put out that to the industry, say to the rest of the financial sector, it's about 50%. We are doing 9%. That is very, very good. So we have to be mindful. And if you look at actually what we spent about 190 billion shillings on all expenses, including the non-cash expenses like depreciation and provisions. But at the same time, we paid out, each percentage point of interest we paid was 151 billion shillings. So in fact, we spent just about 1.2% in terms of interest. Look at it, we paid, each percentage point is 151 billion. What we spent the whole year as the organization, almost 600 staff, is only 190 billion. So just how to assure our members that we are very cost conscious and every year we strive to improve. Thank you.
Do the numbers, just away from the question, do the numbers speak to if, for example, you increased your cost, you could be getting a better return also? You know, does it add up? If you say went to 10, I'm fishing here, Stevens. Allow me fish. Yeah, is it possible?
Sorry, first of all, you should stop fishing. But yes, the numbers make quite a lot of sense. If you really want to come and go down to examine it, I won't go into the details. But
all right, I was just trying to get some information. I'll come to Sajabi. The question from Mungu Achel Ronald. This is a bit personal. It says, what chronic diseases are considered by NSSF for benefit claims?
Thank you, Mungu. So specifically speaking, we don't have a catalog of certain illnesses that we consider for someone to claim invalidity benefit. That mandate is left to the doctor. So if a member came and they're complaining of a particular illness, we send them to the fund doctor. The fund doctor undertakes an examination and is able to advise the fund based on the condition of the member if they qualify to be paid an invalidity benefit. So we do not say that you've got to have condition X, Y. The doctor is in a better condition, and based on the fact that the condition you suffer renders you unable to continue working. So there isn't a list that you should really follow.
So anybody under this category should just walk into the fund and be able to engage the fund on this. That's really good information for our members. I'll come to the head of marketing, Barbara. Magala Frederick says, I want to know how the NSSF smart card, now we're going digital, issued through Centenary Bank works.
Okay, thank you, Fred, for your good question. The NSSF smart card is a Visa card that we have issued in partnership with Centenary Bank and Visa. And it delivers on 3 functionalities. The first is NSSF functionality. We are able to identify the member. If you have that card, we know very well this is Frederick, first thing. The second thing, you are able to actually contribute using your card to your voluntary account. And even at the point of being paid, we can pay you your benefits on that card, even if it's a mandatory claim that you're making or from a voluntary account. So that is NSSF functionality. The second thing is bank functionality, and that means that with this card, and based on the fact that this card is anchored by Centenary Bank, you have access to all the platforms of Centenary Bank. That includes Center Mobile, it includes online banking, it includes all their ATMs, point of sale terminals, and in addition, all the Visa network functionalities, that is ATMs and POS globally. So that is the bank functionality that comes with this card. And then the third aspect, of course, is the loyalty discount that you get. We have a group of merchants, and it's still growing. Right now, we have 18 merchants in the category of construction, technology, and even in entertainment places like hotels, where you can present that card and get a pre-negotiated discount off the price that you have to pay. So in a nutshell, that is what the card is about. Please get yourself one if you don't have one as yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'll come to Gerald. Gerald, we have a couple of questions for you. I'll begin with Rooney Juma, who says, how much interest is earned monthly on the investments which are currently undertaken by NSSF?
Thank you, Mr. Juma. We currently make 184 billion on average per month.
All right. And we are all, as members, looking to hit the 200 billion mark. Okay. Senga asks, do you have plans to invest in low-cost houses that are affordable? To you, Gerald, again. Do you have plans to invest in low-cost houses that are affordable for members? I have heard something about Temangalo, but the information is not clear. When will this be completed?
Thank you again for the question. Yes, we do have plans to invest in low-cost housing, but low-cost housing, we believe, is a journey. That is because currently the private sector of developers meet the full costs that come with putting up a house. The VAT on residential construction is 18%. That is a cost which cannot be recovered. You have infrastructure which has to be put in an estate, which constitutes about 20 to 30% of the project. You have land which we buy at market prices. So essentially, you can actually reduce the cost of a house if there are certain policy interventions that have been put in place. You can reduce the cost of a house by 50%. But basically, where we are at, we say that before we get into low-cost housing, let us start with affordable housing. Temangalo is one such project, which currently is at about 50%. That is a project that will have 3,500 homes. Phase 1, which is being built, has 550. We believe that by the end of 2024, that project should be completed. Basically, we believe that Temangalo project should see a house as low as 90 million. Now, someone could argue that 90 million is still high, but I've also seen in the market where there are some low-cost housing solutions that actually defeat even the purpose of low cost, because you've seen houses of 30 square meters going for 40 million, but the reality is that the average household in Uganda has 5 people. 5 people cannot fit in a 30 square meter house, and I don't think it would be good value for the fund to venture in such. We believe that we can use our stakeholder management model to work with the relevant stakeholders to basically at a policy level work towards bringing the cost of construction down, which will eventually see members getting, or people buying homes getting a decent house at probably 70, 60 million shillings. So that is a journey which we've embarked on. We'll continue to innovate and we'll definitely get there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to the MD, Patrick. The questions, especially for you, are quite many, and I'll see if we can run through as many as we can in this session. Gabriel Opolot speaks to something you did address in your presentation when you're looking at the trust, public trust. He says, with a lot of negative press in the past months for the fund, what confidence do you give us, the members, that our funds are safe and there is a bright future for the fund and its members?
Thank you for that question. I think the numbers don't lie. When we say you members trusted us 1.7 trillion shillings this last year in the midst of tumult, it's not hot air, it's actually money. When the interest is declared at 10% today, it's not hot air, it's real. Today, if you check your balance, in fact, we think the interest that was declared by the end of this month, which is the next 3-4 days, check your balance, check your statement. You're going to see that money there, and that balance is real. So the proof of the pudding is the numbers that you have do not lie. That's the best evidence you're going to have. But also in terms of the future, I think we've laid down what the future looks like for us, where we think we want to go, the planning and the way we intend to get there. By the way, this fund, the idea is actually that we want to make this fund stronger tomorrow than today. Because for a member, you think about for a member who is going to be retiring in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what you really want to have is a stronger fund tomorrow than today. And that's the type of investment that we are embarking on so that you'll know that your savings are secure.
Thanks very much, MD. And we continue receiving your questions. We are using the hashtag AMM2013, and the team continues to refine these questions for us. But still, for you, Patrick, Chidandi Remy says, what is NSSF doing to help its members with the increasing cost of living and the increasing cost of factors of production as far as poverty eradication among its members is concerned? And I think he also speaks to what the minister said, leaving no one behind.
Umeme, I think we have to be cautious and responsible in how we answer that. Umeme is a public company. By virtue of it being a public company, we have to be very cautious about what we can say about it. Publicly, we know that what has happened is the concession will not be renewed. We know that the government is committed to making sure that whatever they need to make good, they will make good. And NSF, as part of the shareholders, will not suffer disadvantage when the government makes good. And then after that, we can then have a discussion that relates to then how we intervene in that area.
Herbert, still with you, MD. I'll turn to, yes, Nicholas Mujema, who says his grandfather used to save with NSSF, but when I went there to collect his savings in 2016, I was only given 140,000 after 30 years. He had saved 100,000. My question is, was it a well calculated, or was I deliberately cheated?
I'm hoping he has access and he has looked at his financial statements. If you doubt what you have, just come and we'll print for you all the years since you became a member. And at that moment, you can actually trace and determine whether what we posted on your statement reflects what you earn or what you don't earn. Then we can actually have that discussion. So my plea to members, the reason why we send you messages every month whenever we get your contribution is to alert you we got your contribution. In fact, my appeal is, if you don't get that message, the first stop, go to your HR or payroll officer and say, hey, did you send my money? Or then come to us. That's the only evidence we have. If we work on this together, we can then answer that question whether you're cheated or not. So I would really encourage him, let him go. If he can just find the statements, go to any branch, we'll print it out for you, and you can actually check Even if he drew some of it, we'll go backwards and confirm what his contributions were.
Stevens, let me come to you. Patrick, you still have quite a bunch of questions. I'll come back. Stevens, let's look at Jacob's question. He says, can interest be earned immediately rather than waiting for a year and you start computing? Why is it calculated like this? He wants his money every month, huh?
Okay, thank you. That is Jacob. First of all, it's calculated like that because that's what the law says. Yeah, and the law cannot be amended. But realistically speaking, I understand where it's coming from. But also have to remember that NSSF is a long-term investor. You've had the kind of figures that we are talking about that we collect. If you're collecting 150 billion shillings per month, it takes time for you to be able to productively deploy it. And that time can be 6 months plus. So if we come and say, okay, we paid interest now, as at 30th June, there's money we would have received in June. Can we realistically pay you interest against that money? No. Because of the numbers that we are dealing with and the size of the economy we are dealing with, we have to get realistic time for us to be able to deploy that money sufficiently. We have to have that time lead so that we can give you a realistic return. Thank you.
All right, Sajabi, Peter Waiswa says, is there a penalty for missing a monthly contribution when you are a voluntary member of NSSF? Speaking to voluntary membership, will you penalize me if I fail to pay at the end of every month?
The answer is in the word voluntary. So basically, if you choose to voluntarily sign up and contribute into the fund, you're doing so on the basis of understanding that you recognize the need to save. Voluntary is designed with flexibility that enables you to choose how much to save, to choose when to save. So we completely understand that for the voluntary saver, it's different from the salary. You may not have that income on a regular, basis. So if you can do it monthly, great. If you can't do it, you're still able to do it according to your means. If I'm a farmer and I'm selling, my maize once a year or twice a year, and that is when I've got income to save, the product enables me to save according to when I earn money. And we do not penalize a voluntary saver who does not pay on a regular basis.
All right. I'll now turn to Barbara. Barbara, there is a question from Stella who says, what happened to the funds collected from the NSSF run? We want accountability.
Yes, the fund is accountable, and the funds collected from the previous editions of the run was deployed to 13 schools, and we renovated 60 classroom blocks, benefiting over 50,000 children. The funds collected from this year's run is also going to be deployed to
said, and he basically reiterated 4 areas in terms of the investment strategy structure. One is you get your asset mix. That's driven by a science based on what our risk appetite is, what we think the market is going to be. Now that informs what or how much of in each area you deploy. Then he mentioned diversification. Diversification is the fact that within each asset class, you have different assets you put in. Let me give you a very good example. If you look at real estate, you can have office buildings, you can have residential houses. What happened in COVID? In COVID, most offices were closed. In fact, most businesses closed operations, but they were still in their homes. So you can find that to mitigate the fact that you may have a downturn, you would have to balance the residential with the office space to give you so the element of diversification. Then it talks about tax strategies you consider. Why do we invest in Tanzania? Because Tanzania taxable rates are zero. They are zero rated for anything over 5 years. Here we pay 10%. So all those considerations come into then how it's made. So a bit of science, a bit of art, but the whole point is a balance between the risk appetite and the returns we expect. Maybe, actually, can I ask Gerard to help?
Yes.
He's more technical in this than I am.
Thank you, Patrick. I think you've done well. The issue is you have to realize that largely 90% or 80% of the return is informed by the asset mix. So we set out this asset mix with a view that we will, even when the markets do not perform as we expect them to, like we saw this year, we'll still give a return which is above our target of the 10-year average inflation plus 2%, but then also which is above the minimum that has been set out in Section 35 of the NSSF Act as amended. So asset mix is a very important consideration to how we ensure that the return that is being given to members is sustainable over the long term. I do not want to repeat the others because I already said them, but for me the big one is asset mix. Any scheme that has, or any asset manager that has 70% or more allocated to fixed income, that is an investment strategy that will cater for any volatility that you might see in the market. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gerald. Still with you, MD, Patrick. Your namesake, Musunga Patrick, says, are the rumors, and he's from the diaspora, so you can understand he's speaking to some of the rumors he's hearing on social media, I guess. Are the rumors that you plan to force Ugandans in the diaspora to save with you true?
Actually, part of what the regulations are going to cater is exactly for that on a voluntary basis. So please, just maybe another 1 month or two, we are coming to knock on your doors. We've been in the UK, the US, Dubai, wherever the Ugandan is, please, we are coming so you can save.
So it is, Agnes can speak to force.
And it is voluntary, yes.
Yes, I was about to ask now. His question was force. So I think you've answered him by saying it's voluntary. He can, but I think he needs to plan for his future and save with you. So voluntary is the word. Patrick Herbert Muwezi says it's been in the media that the government has intentions of borrowing from NSSF. One, what's the assurance to the public that our savings are safe in case the government borrows from the fund? He has another follow-up question, so I'll start with that.
If you are ever going to borrow money or to lend money, if you're ever going to lend money, the safest asset for most economies is lending to the government. Governments, when they borrow money, for us, it's through bonds. We're not the only ones who lend money to the government. Whenever Bank of Uganda issues these auctions, you find Germans, Japanese, the US, the Kenyans, the banks will scramble to lend the money to the government because it's a very safe investment. No government will willingly and deliberately default. The cost is too high for a government to default. So it becomes the safest lending you can make. We're lucky in Uganda, not only is it safe, but also came with high yields. I mean, very difficult to get 15% on an investment that's pretty much considered risk-free. So that, in fact, what Nigeria said, the fact that we have 78% of our investments in bonds, whether it's Kenya bonds, Tanzania bonds, Uganda bonds, is actually an assurance that our savings are safe.
Thanks, MD. I think you've answered partly his second question, where he was talking about a recovery plan for that money in case there was a default. I think you've answered that. There is never a default.
No, there's not a default.
All right. I will come to Agnes. Agnes, this is a question that came in from Lee Martin. The fund charges 10% on late payments by employers. Those penalties added on the NSSF account, on the individual's NSSF account. Do I get more interest because there's a penalty? You give me 10 and I get the 10% as a fine?
So by law, penalties go to the fund. The member will get their principal and the interest. That's the provision of the law. Thank you.
All right. Still for you, Agnes, the penalties charged, how are they accounted for? Does it have a different account, or is this put similar into the individual's names? But that's all your operating costs. I think you answered that. I'll turn to Sajabi from Dr. Alan Zbene, who says, is it allowed to do personal deposits on my NSSF account as a savings mechanism instead of just waiting and relying on what the employer puts for me? If possible, how can I do it?
Thank you so much. So yes, the essence of the amendment of the law was partly to make it possible for members like him to be able to contribute over and above the 5%. So the regulations that the MD talked of that should be coming out in a month or even less will enable members of the fund that are already contributing under the mandatory scheme to choose to save over and above 5%. So it is absolutely true, and we encourage members of the fund because, I mean, look at the numbers. Your employer does for you 10%. You are doing 5%. This money is not going to the employer. It's actually your money. So at worst, perhaps we should be seeking to even match what the employer is doing. So if a member has got the financial ability to save more than 5%, they should. And that is provided for in the law.
All right. I will take from Wycliffe to Mwesje. MD, this is your question. He says, I worked in Rwanda and served with the RSSB for 4 years. Can I get my benefits from RSSB and transfer to NSSF Uganda and get it from here?
We are still, there is actually discussion at the East Africa community level whether we can get certain framework that allows portability of benefits from one scheme to another. That hasn't been concluded as yet. So once that is concluded, then at East African level and agreed to, it actually meets the whole idea behind the free movement of capital. So hopefully that can be done quickly.
All right. Patrick, for you from Yvonne Mpanga, the law says monthly. How does NSSF handle entrepreneurs that deal with seasonal employees? And these pay 3 to 4 months of the year. Do they get penalized for the gaps?
Most of the entrepreneurs are going to be under voluntary. So with the voluntary, as Geoffrey explained, there's flexibility on when you make those contributions.
All right. We really have come towards the end, but MD, if you could allow me, I did see some questions here for the other members of EXCO. I don't know if we can find a microphone. Victor, we're able to find a microphone for some of our colleagues in, I see we have people on culture. There was a question for procurement. There was a question for the Chief Technical and Enterprise Solutions Officer. Yes, Evie, you want to? Let's see, where do I start? Piki Ponke. I'll go to Head of People on Culture. Where is our Head of People on Culture? Please, yes, the mic, Evie. That's the gentleman there at the end. Your very first question from Jennifer Attar. What happened to the NSSF internship program? You haven't made any intake this year, or in years actually.
Thank you. Internship is something we believe in very strongly. The last time we did it was just before COVID visited the world. And when COVID came, we thought we'd go a bit slow on it because we want to manage the numbers in the organization. We should have taken this year, but we all know that NSSF was going through a period of turbulence, for lack of a better word, and that's not the kind of environment you want to bring your young people to come and learn. In any case, the people who are supposed to chaperone them, to learn from them, were all grossly involved in managing the various investigations. So we chose not to take it in turns this year. But I can tell you that come next year, we certainly will be back.
There will be a lot of letters on your desk. Still with you, sir. Let's look at Francis Basaji, who says, do employees of the fund also contribute to the pool? You may be collecting from us, but you're not contributing.
No, employees of the fund are as much employees like any other employee in institutions like ourselves. We also retire at some point in time, and we also plan for our future. So we contribute because, like we had most of today, it's in our best interest, it's in the best interest of our families, it's for the good of our country. So we are as contributors as everyone else.
All right. Evie, if I could get that mic, we move to our head of procurement. Head of procurement is here, Evie. Okay, great. Let's look at the question from Niwagaba Gad, who says, how is NSSF helping small companies to supply products and services? It seems your bids are won by only the big companies.
Thank you for that question. Our small and big companies are differentiated in terms of the numbers they employ and the companies' annual turnover, average annual turnovers. So for the small companies, NSSF has segmented the procurements in terms of thresholds. When we look at the different methods of procurement, where we have 5 million and below, where most of the small companies play around, we mainly shortlist and have them in that area. But also we are trying to venture and attract them through having them registered with the EGP, because we are now on the EGP and the small companies are not registered. So we are rolling out engagements with the small companies to make sure that even when we attract them under that segment, they are responsive. But also, depending on how you define the big and small, we are championing the reservation schemes in terms of thresholds as well. But for where the most big companies are playing around with is in the works procurements, where we are calling on joint ventures with the local companies. We're also calling on subcontracting. 30% of the works, the value of the contract have to be subcontracted. And so those are the main areas where the NSSF is trying to support the small businesses.
All right, thank you very much. I'll turn to, just to prepare the head of strategy and the chief technical and enterprise solutions officer, but I'll begin with head of strategy. Yes, your neighbor. The question is from Pascal. How can I qualify for the high innovator business support?
Yeah, thank you very much. So Pascal, if you want to qualify for the High Innovator program, I think that the first step of your journey is to go to the Business Academy, the online Business Academy. If you go to Google, just put NSSF Online Business Academy. That's where you start your journey. It starts with just learning about business. There's an online academy with about 8 modules. Once you've started your journey there, you can register to enter the accelerator program, where there's a bunch of criteria you have to fulfill. But it starts with the online academy, and it's a very easy process.
Alan is asking, is it possible to work with the members to start business investments or projects early rather than waiting for retirement?
Yes, I think one of the things that we plan to do in the next couple of years, if you see what we're doing financial literacy over the last few years, we plan to evolve that more into the entrepreneurship space. So you'll also be learning about entrepreneurship in the process. So the answer is yes. So watch the space. You're going to see a lot of change in the content of our financial literacy program with more on entrepreneurship.
All right, I'll finally go to the Chief Technology and Enterprise Solutions Officer. And this is before I go to the MD for the last set of questions. Your very first question, sir, is from Abese Maganda, who says, what are the plans to improve the utility of NSSF apps, because we've gone digital, so that they don't just show balance and statements? Give us a better experience, is what he's asking for.
Okay.
Thank you. Great question. Currently, our apps do a lot more than that. And we're one of those departments, together with the rest of the fund, that truly lives that motto, that we make lives better. So our members can not only check balances or get statements, but they can also apply for the benefits. And I'd like to take this opportunity to let the public know that anyone that wants to apply for a benefit, now that interest has been declared, you can apply for every benefit that we have out there without having to come to the fund, without having to do any paperwork, because we have a lot of that arranged digitally. We also enable our members to amend their details at the fund. You don't have to walk in to say, I'm changing my phone number, my name, or any other detail that I have out there. We've also made it possible that the member can track the status of a benefit. So I've applied, and I want to know at what stage it is. I want to know when I'll get it, if I'll get it, if it's been approved or declined. They can do all of that. And in supporting the Vision 2035, we have a lot more in stock for our members out there, including the ability for them to do bill payments, and all of that is in support of helping our members drive the willingness and the convenience for them to save.
All right. I know Barbara is working. So when you see her here, she's doing her job. I just have to stay in line. So still for you, Robert Odong says, NSSF used to send me updates about my account, but it's been long since I last got a message. What happened? I opened an account when I was single. I am now married with children. I need regular updates. How do I go about it? That's what he's saying.
Thanks for that, and apologies about that. We still do send out updates. We send out SMSs, we send out email statements to all our members. What we've tweaked a bit here and there is to ensure that the information goes to the right person. So we do some extra checks on phone numbers to ensure that the balance that comes to you is not for someone else. So you'll get one or two of those instances where the phone number is now registered to someone else. So we take that extra care to verify that that data is actually yours. Now, we've also broadened our engagement with the ecosystem, that if something has changed, you want to change anything on your status, your ID, we've actually integrated with a number of our partners, including the telecoms. On MTN, for example, you can go in there and update any details of yours, and we'll get that real time to ensure that we serve you seamlessly.
There's a very interesting question here from Henry, and it's a numbers question, so please take the numbers in consideration as you listen. He says, and feel free, any of the members on the other side can take this also after, but it's a numbers thing, because he's getting projections on his app, and he's saying, my retirement benefits projection before and during COVID was always reading 360 million. But for some time now, about a year and a half, this is I think after 2020, my retirement projection has reduced to around 210 million. My savings are 1.3 monthly, and I have 9 more years to retire. My question is there a fraud on my account? And where should I go to redress this?
Absolutely no fraud on that account. Like the MD said, integrity is one of those values that we treasure. There's integrity in our systems, there's integrity in our accounting and all the way. And I'm glad that he's actually using that facility, because we put that there to enable members to dream and say, if I'm going to work for another 10 years or 20 years, where will I be? But there are parameters in there that keep changing. So one of the parameters that has changed of recent is we said, okay, we've given you the ability to input the interest rate that you think we're going to give. So one point was fixed at 10%, but now we've put it at 5%, and then you can also go in and play with that. Play around with the number of years that you think you still have gainful employment. Play around with the salary growth rate that you project that you will have. So once you play around with those input variables, the output will vary. The output will change. So I encourage him to go and play with that. We've made it a lot more intuitive, a lot more engaging. Let him play around with those variables and see that it gets to the return or to a level that helps him drive either financial discipline or drive investments to get to a level that he wants to get to.
All right, Henry Watira, you have some work to play with on the app, and I guess you will probably see a bigger projection. If you can hope the fund grows and you can put in a 13% somewhere along the way and a 15 somewhere before the 9 years of retirement. Patience still asks you, Patience Ainembabazi, I have 2 accounts with NSSF. Both are mine, but have different names. How can I get help to merge them?
Thanks, Patience. Happy to be of help. Very simple process on our side. It can start by her reaching out to either through a call center or dropping us an email. All our contacts are on our website or in a number of other fora. That's a simple process. Once she gets to us through any of our channels, then we will call back and do some verification. And within about 5 minutes, that process will be done. So it's one of those that we cater for.
Again, please walk in and engage with the fund. Peter Kwichiriza asks, why are you not introducing biometric devices? It's hard for someone to get money in case of an error in one's records. And I know it's because a lot of people have been trying to come for their midterm access, being asked for so many other records. So why not just go biometric? It is me. I am the owner of the money.
We have actually gone biometric. And what we do is that we work with an ecosystem to make it easy for our members to claim their funds. One of the things we do is that we use KYC from a number of other providers, a number of other organizations. We pick your information either from the telecom or from NIRA or from Ministry of Public Service, etc., to arrive at who you are, and not necessarily on one piece of information that you might not have. We actually already use biometrics, and biometrics could be your fingerprints, it could be your face. And anyone who's applied for midterm or any of our benefits online, you'll notice that now we actually do facial verification. We just take your picture either from NIRA or what we have and what you currently have to do that. And we're making the process that easy for someone, that even if there's a piece of information that does not tally, we have other areas that we can pick on and say, I think you're the one, and we will serve you with the information that we have.
All right, this is unrelated, but because if you say you're picking biometrics, clearly the fingerprint won't change from NIRA, but some of us, the facials have changed. So you never had gray hair, you now have gray hair. How can I quickly update my profile so that, when I walk in, you say, he's the guy, he's the one. This is truly the same guy who owns this account. How often can we do that?
As often as you want. So first of all, we've put it on our self-service channels, our own channels. We've put it on the telecoms. You can do that very easily. But just to allay your fears, machine learning has evolved a lot. So even if you have beards, they're now gray, your hairline is receding, etc., the technology will be able to identify you and say, yes, you're the same person that you were even more than 30 years ago. So we've catered for all the scenarios to be able to drive that convenience when serving you as the member.
Right. We have just a couple of more minutes and you have your very last question from Atkinson Wanadi, who says, every month when my contribution is sent to the fund, I receive a text message mentioning my savings balance, but there is a disparity between what I have saved and the balance NSSF communicates. The amount is less than my actual contribution. Why?
Would be glad to serve that customer. Would be glad to welcome that customer to come in and we take a look at their statement. Because like the MD was saying, we believe in transparency. So we not only give you what has hit your account on a monthly basis, but a detailed statement every month. Now that statement has all the transactions from the time you started to the last transaction. So if there are disparities, could be that the employer is deducting but not remitting, we're happy to look at those and analyze them. We have all the information, and there are people that are waiting to serve one such member.
All right, thank you very much. Turn to the Chief Risk Officer for a final set of questions. The very first question is from John Danda, who says, the Minister talked about risks from Kenya in terms of investments, but I also know about things like hacking. Do you have a risk strategy for both operations and even investments?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Edward Senyonjo, Chief Risk Officer. Obviously, we are cognizant that in our environment, there are various risks, including the one you have talked about, the cyber risks, and we continuously evaluate our environment and put in place measures to counter such risks, including when we are doing investment. Before we make an investment decision, we usually look at what can go wrong. We make detailed analysis, which informs our optimal decisions that we make.
There is a question here from Thomas, and everyone talks to cybersecurity, who says, how are the NSSF systems robust as far as information security is concerned? We hear a lot of digital fraud in the banks. Is NSSF safe? And can someone, rub off some zeros from my account or add a zero. I mean, the interest would be to add a zero on someone's account. This gentleman is interested, if it's possible.
Yeah, first of all, when it comes to cyber risk, I can assure you there is no entity which is 100% safe. Even where you have advanced technology in the US, there is always that possibility that someone can hack into your system. Nonetheless, we evaluate that risk from time to time, and we assess our systems. Many times we even invite people from outside the organization to come and assess our systems, to do what we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. And if we are able to identify some weaknesses, it gives us an opportunity to proactively address those gaps. So we, to a reasonable extent, I can say our systems are robust, and up to now, we have not had a major incident.
Thank you very much. MD, you have the last word. I am done. There were 400 questions plus. We really had only time for about 50 questions, and we've really done a good job in getting all the 50 in. MD, you have the last word. Any takeaways?
Yes, thank you. Agnes just had the correction, then I will.
Yes, thank you, MD. So you know context matters. When I responded to the question about lending, so some of us use the word bank and financial institution interchangeably, so I need the record to be clear. NSSF is not a bank. It is a financial institution. So that's the context, and I needed that to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maurice, and thank you, members. Thank you, board, for today, and thank you for the questions that we have. This fund is our fund. I think sometimes as Ugandans we beat ourselves too much, but this is owned, managed, and run by Ugandans. And today it's the top 5 well-managed funds across the globe by Ugandans. So as we embark over the next few years together, savings is not a luxury. As you get a little money, put it away. If not in NSSF, put it away somewhere, because it does matter as we grow older and emergencies come to you. Our pledge basically is we are going to give it our best to preserve your money, to grow your investments, and actually to be that leading light as we help develop this country as the local investor. Hold us to account. Let's talk. If you have an issue, walk in, because it is in doing that that we can correct whatever is going wrong and help build this country together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MD, and your team. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I will now humbly request the MD and your EXCO and the other colleagues on the floor to join you. We'll have a photo moment up here, so we can stand MD with your team. I'll ask the technical team to put our interest rate. I continue showing off the interest rate. The team that has delivered the 10%. Please stand, members of EXCO, please join your team at the front. Let's have a photo moment with the 10%. To show the work that you have done. And I also want to remind all of you, our guests, in case you haven't received your lunch coupon, please do pick it on your way out from our ushers. The lunch will be served upstairs in Choga Hall. Please do get a coupon on your way there. The other questions for you, our virtual audience, the questions are going to be answered by the technical teams online. All right, and so those of you online, the questions that haven't been answered, the technical teams will come to the platform. I hope you did tag at NSSF UG, the handle that will be used to reply all the questions that were shared on the online platforms. We want to thank you. I now want to request, and I see our chair and the chairman emeritus. I've been asked to ask both of you to join in the next photo. It will be nice, chairman, yourself and the chair emeritus. I've been asked to request you to join them in this photo. The proud moment of sharing the platform with both of you, please. And the board members, please come. Board members, yes. Let's join the team. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I really want in a very, very special way to request that once again we put our hands together for the fund. NSSF, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for delivering the 10% as promised. And we want to appreciate all the partners and stakeholders who've been joining us here. Our regulator, UBRA, the Auditor General, who joined us virtually, the Ministries of Finance and the Ministries of Gender, for being part of this 11th virtual annual members meeting. We want to appreciate, I'm sure some of you are already doing the math on what the 10% represents on your balances. We then now hand over to our normal programming for those who are watching us on television and our online audiences. We appreciate you. The conversation continues using the hashtag AMM2023. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.